Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the ice. Brought to you by Dokesburg Fuels, Kate's Financial Group, Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, of course, Tubby Hockey. Wayne, one breath, had to get it all in because it's a busy week for everybody, north and south of the border. You got to be getting excited, but I don't know what's going to happen. That'll be talk number two. I mean, we got one team added, but there's two spots left. See what happens with them Raiders. I don't know. Not my Las Vegas Raiders. I can't cheer for those Raiders. I'll cheer for the other Raiders. How about that?
Yeah, it's going to be some great and exciting hockey winding down this next 7 to 10 days or whatever when the season winds up. Lots of races on the go. And like you say, down south, the NCAA Frozen Four is underway. So some great hockey.
Let's talk about the Frozen Four because that's happening this upcoming weekend, April 7th through 9th. TD Garden in Boston, Mass. Trailblazer Hockey will be there as well to check out the action. It's always an exciting Final Four. I mean, we had March Madness, but this is a whole different scenario because, quite frankly, this is probably the most exciting 72 hours of sport, I think.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, it's like a do or die one game showdown and stuff like that. So, it makes it pretty exciting. You can't have a bad shift. You can't have a bad period, nothing, right? It'll cost you and stuff. So, yeah, absolutely. It's going to be some of the best hockey there is. I mean, the NCAA is known for being extremely fast. These guys, typically are in that 21 to 23-year-old range. So they're well into turning into men. And, many will go on to professional hockey. So it's going to be a great time at the old Boston Gardens.
There are certainly some players that have been drafted in the NHL playing this weekend. One kind of close to home that recently got traded in playing for Minnesota State, Nathan Smith. They're taking on the other Minnesota team in the one semifinal side on the Friday. The other side is Denver and Michigan.
Yeah.
Michigan has got some stellars because they had 3 or 4 first-round draft picks. Did you expect anything different from Michigan? I mean, were they expected to be there the whole way through?
Yeah. I mean, they're a powerhouse. Like you say, with all those first-round draft choices and stuff, it would have been a crime if they hadn't made it to the Frozen Four. But, they're going to be a good team. But there's 3 other great teams in there. Those 3 teams are there for a reason, just like Michigan. And like you say, when it comes down to a one-game showdown to see who goes on to the championship, and again, that's a one-game showdown. Pretty exciting and little room for margin of error there.
You bring that up. The margin of error is so small because I find that with NCAA hockey, more so than WHL hockey, it's that one slip up because each team plays such a significant system where everything is a fine-tuned machine, well-oiled, just got out of the mechanic shop, and they're ready to rock and roll here. And I've noticed games are like 2-1, 1-0, and then all of a sudden just a drastic mistake occurs and a flip of the script. Much like we saw last night with my beloved Tar Heels getting taken out by the Kansas Jayhawks. But nonetheless, we digress. But you watch some of these games. I mean, it's a 2-1 game real close, and all of a sudden it becomes a 4-2 win for the other side. And it's just truly amazing to see how that change of action occurs with a flick of the switch.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like any hockey, in my opinion, when you get down to the playoffs, goaltending is huge. Most teams build from the goaltender out, and it'll be the same here at the Frozen Four. I mean, there's some incredible goaltenders going to be in the Final Four, including a kid out of Saskatchewan for Minnesota. So that's kind of an interesting story. And he's kind of a late bloomer that came out of almost nowhere to start for the Gophers. But again, you got to have great goaltenders, or else you're not going to be in the Frozen Four. You're not going to be in the playoffs and in the run in the WHL. It's just absolutely critical, the role that the goaltender plays.
Has that trend, I mean, you talk about that real quick before we get to topic 2, does that trend of defense first become more evident now than ever in the junior and college ranks? Because that is what the NHL is preaching these days, because gone are the days of 215-point seasons. I mean, we're barely seeing players scrape 110. I mean, we have 2 from the Oilers doing that now. But in terms of like the few and far between, we're not seeing those heavy goal scorers and the point getters anymore. Is that because the change has been flipped to more of a defensive game?
Yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, it's always been, as you get to playoffs, it seems like it shifts more to that type of game. And I mean, there's been some equipment changes. Obviously, goalies have bigger equipment now and stuff, and more flexible a lot of times, bigger goalies and stuff like that. So it's always a key part of the game. But, an interesting stat, to go back to the Saskatchewan kid that's in goal for Minnesota. He's a kid that's 5'10", 175 pounds. And, everybody's looking for those big goaltenders. And, trust me, I deal with a lot of coaches and GMs that, unless a guy is 6'2" or above, they won't even talk to you about the kid. But, here's a classic example of a kid that's just got athletic ability and keeps the puck out of the net. And I think his save percentage running at 929. I think his 20 games he played in this year. And, he filled in for their starter. Their starter signed a pro contract, so he stepped in. And his previous 2 years, he was running at a 750 save percentage. So the kid has come a long ways. But, to your point, goaltending is huge, particularly in the playoffs.
We'll get to the late bloomer question in topic 3. You're getting ahead of me, Wayne, but let's stick into the junior side of things. You have to pronounce this name for me because he's dear to your heart. Prince Albert Raiders Player of the Week, the goalie of the week, Keane Cheka. Is that correct?
Keane Cheka, yeah, you got it. So yeah, he's been playing incredible, and I think his save percentage over the last few games, like this week, was 949. And I mean, that's insanely crazy. I mean, most teams will look for a goalie to have that 900 or above, but when you're pushing 950. Like I say, that's almost unheard of and stuff. And we talked about Justin Close sitting at a 929, and goes to show you how defensive the games have become, how good the goalies become, and how important that really is. And of course, it takes all the players in front of the goalie too to make that happen, of course. But still, the goalie has to come up with some big saves if other people have made mistakes in front of him.
I think Landon would have given you trouble if you didn't say that the players in front of him just as important as the goaltenders, right, Wayne?
It is. I mean, they got to get the credit too. And you're right, he'd be harping on me. But yeah, defensemen block a lot of shots. They make good breakout passes type thing. Intercept passes, block lanes, all those things that help the goalie out and stuff. So, everybody's got to help out, same as the forwards. They got to be 200-foot forwards in the playoffs and make sure and get back and defend and get the puck out of their own end before they worry about putting it in the other guy's net.
Unfortunately for the Raiders, they're still sitting on the outside looking in. The Brandon Wheat Kings have added their name to the playoff structure for the East Division, still sitting at 5 in the West. But looking at the last 3 or 4 games remaining, I think the Regina Pats are the hardest team done in. I think we could almost eliminate them because they play 3 of their last 5 against the ice, unless the ice rest a whole bunch of players, which I don't think they'll do. But outside of that, I mean, Prince Albert still has a pretty good chance of sneaking in there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased a little bit there, but even, just to put on my hockey hat and forget about being a hockey dad. I mean, Prince Albert, I think is, they have control of their own destiny. They play Brandon on Saskatoon on Friday.
Right.
Saturday they play the Pats, and then I think they go into Swift Current, and then I think they close with Brandon in Prince Albert. So, they've got to absolutely beat the Pats and the Broncos. And if they do that, I think they're probably going to get in. And I agree with you on the Pats. They dropped that big 7-0 game last week to the ice and then went into Prince Albert and got pounded 6-1 there. So, 1 goal in 2 games when it's critical to win is not good. And so they kind of seem to be a defeated team. They've got a tough schedule ahead of them. So, I don't like their chances. Calgary though, and Swift, and of course Lethbridge is there. I think Lethbridge is a lock now. It's really between Calgary, Swift Current, and PA for that final spot. Considering that I'm counting Regina out, just based on my prognosis.
Dr. Kosior says 3 teams left for the last 8th spot. He would like to see his Raiders. Sean Mullen would like to see his Broncos. I don't really have a vested interest in anybody. I just want to see good hockey. But I have to ask you this. Why is it that, this is maybe something for another discussion on another episode of Wayne's World. Why is it that game 1 never gets the same amount of attention as game 60 going into the playoffs and saying, okay, guys, it's do or die. It's playoff hockey time. We got 5 games left. Why is it that we don't put the weight on game 1 at the same as we do for game 60?
Well, I think the coaches do. Sometimes, they try to remind their players that game 1's as important as game 60, but you know how it goes. Sometimes they think it's a long season, and us as fans sometimes don't watch it too closely, and then you start to look back at some of those games you lost or maybe got tied late in the game and then went to overtime and you lost a point out of that. Turned out to be extremely big points and stuff. So, I just think it's too early in the season. But once you get down to the final games and you start really looking closely at the standing, and we all become, standing watchers at this time of the year, and then suddenly it's critical. But like I say, the coaches, I'm sure, will say from day one every game is important.
I would agree. It's like almost like nutrition. You don't think about it when you're 5 years old, but you think about it when you're 65. Like, yeah, I should have done something I should have done about 60 years
Yeah,
ago, but
true.
we'll leave it at that. Our conversations have always topic three here before we say goodbye to Wayne. Our topic three tonight is something we've always talked about when in terms of either joining Trailblazer Hockey Advisors or even just not cashing in on your career just yet, because we are seeing so many more late bloomers becoming seen or signing or getting that opportunity that they would not have gotten at 16. Or maybe they got it at 16, but they just didn't blossom the way we thought they would after 2 years. And then they go back into the draft and then boom, they get picked up with a huge entry level contract. Just because you don't get drafted or you get dropped doesn't mean your season or your career is over. Correct, Wayne?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a snapshot in time is what I classify drafts as. And, when you got the WHL draft and 14-year-olds just turning 15, that's extremely young. And there's a long roadway of development ahead of those players. Some players will, trend upward. Some are going to trend downward. And, we've always said here at Trailblazer that 16 years old is a key age and a key critical point, just because players get driver's license, they start to discover girls a little bit more, a lot more distractions. And, you find out which players are really committed to their hockey future and which ones really maybe pursue other activities that take away from their hockey career. And it's just regretfully a fact of life of how things go. And, so we really don't try to judge hockey players until they're well into that 17, 18 years old. Then it starts to become clearer. And even then, there's still a couple more years of good development ahead that by the time you're 20 and, looking to graduate junior hockey, that's when you should be able to tell what kind of player they're going to be.
Life's intangibles always start at 16. I know they did for me. They probably did for you as well, Wayne. But talk about, I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. Do you remember who the first Red Deer Rebel was that scored 100 points in a season?
The first Red Deer Rebel, like in franchise history?
Franchise, first ever, and he's the first ever, and there's only been two that have done it. This person and another one.
Oh, my God. The only guy I can think back in the early days is Landon Ferraro.
Oh, this is like several years ago, not 2 or 3 years ago. Brandon Hagel, the
Oh, okay.
ex-Chicago Blackhawk, who
Okay.
brings me into this system here, where he was drafted in 2019, I believe, by the Buffalo Sabres, and then he was removed, and then he came back, and then long story short, here he is being a pivotal trading person this draft at the NHL trade deadline, and it caused quite a snuff in Chicago. The reason why I bring his name up is because there's now a second Red Deer Rebel that's got over 100 points, who recently just signed with the Vancouver Canucks on an entry-level contract. That's Arshdeep Bains, who is a BC native, who, without having a great season, maybe still would have been signed, but nonetheless, a late bloomer. And there's 5 late bloomers that have been targeted by some WHL writers. I'll name a couple more. Oil Kings Edmonton, Josh Williams, as well as a netminder for the Blades, Nolan Meyer. Nolan Meyer doesn't have the greatest numbers, but his stats win-loss. He'll keep you in games. And, he makes sure that he has one less goal against him versus the one scored for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Nolan Meyer, I've always said he's an incredible goalie, but he's another one of those kids that's under 6 feet tall. And I think, at the NHL level, not many GMs are going to make a bet on a kid that's under 6 feet for whatever reason, regardless of what his record was in major, junior, and the WHL and stuff like that. It's still a sad fact and reality of life. And it's no different, with defensemen. And, my son's a classic example of just being 5'11" and just a shade under 6 feet. That a lot of teams won't, look at that. But of course, with the advent and the growing feature of having mobile defensemen that jump into the play and stuff with guys like Cale Makar and stuff, more and more teams are starting to employ that. So, every team needs one of those smaller, more mobile guys. And I think if you look through the rosters, there's at least 1 or 2 of those guys on every team, along with the big 6'4" guys.
Absolutely. I'm going to mention 2 Winnipeg Ice players. Mikey Milne is having a tremendous season this year, undrafted. 35 goals, 37 assists, 72 points. And Ben Zalotti had a tremendous beginning to the season. Hasn't really drifted off much. He's got 54 assists and 24 of those on the power play. Talk about a guy that quarterbacks a power play. Obviously helps when you have guys like Benson and Milne and Geeky and Savoy, I mean, to help out, but not too shabby for two players that are local here in Winnipeg that could get a pickup in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys. I mean, I think Zalati's a 2002, so he can still go through the draft this year. So there's a chance somebody could grab him. And if not, if he plays as an overage, good chance he can go on and land himself a pro contract as a free agent and stuff. I mean, you look at Mark Giordano, he's the classic guy of never getting drafted and goes on to be, top defenseman in the NHL, all-star type thing and stuff. So again, getting drafted isn't everything, as we've said many, many, many times.
Wayne, we got lots of great foreshadowing for the next upcoming weeks. Talk about how not only the Frozen Four went down, but also the portal system, how it's really changed, how we're seeing players transfer and move from place to place. We'll definitely visit that conversation in an upcoming episode. Wayne's World here, brought to you by Toby Hockey, Case Financial Group, Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, and Dopes Fuels. Upcoming next is our good pal, the new appointed assistant GM and U18 head coach for the male program in the first season. Billy Keane's going to join us in part 2. So stay with us here on the ice. Thanks, Wayne. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Theo. Have a great week.
Have fun.
Welcome to Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot Mountain Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.
Joining us now on part 2 of On the Ice here on ASTV, the new assistant GM and male U18 head coach, Mr. Billy Keane. Billy, before we get started, I was trying to find a video snippet, if I could, of Muhammad Ali banging the drum saying the champ is here. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that video, but I have to say, first off, congratulations and welcome to the Academy, and a tremendous signing, a tremendous position for you to fill. First and foremost, tell us how this all came about and what attracted you to joining not only Pilot Mountain, but also just in a hockey academy as opposed to continuing junior hockey.
Well, thanks for having me, Theo, first and foremost. And then, certainly it has been a bit of a whirlwind, I'll tell you. It's, it was only a couple of weeks ago that we finished up in Verdun, March the 10th and 11th to be exact. And we we're in a playoff team, and we had a hard time with some corporate sales up there. We really did. So that, the team had a hard time. So bottom line was that, it wasn't a playoff team, and primarily our first year. We had 2 months last year, September, October, and that was it. But this is primarily our first year. And so that, the ownership decided to take a different direction. But, having said that, I did come back to Winnipeg with full intentions on going back up there. I had the company vehicle still, and my daughter got married on March 26th, and I had a spring break camp organized, so I was heading back up there, and then the owners decided to make a change. So, so that happened. In the meantime, obviously I connected with you, and I connected with Gordy Tomlinson, and we had you guys put together, and Game On put together a wonderful article about our 6 players, and as alumni at Pilot Mound, and Ernie Sutherland, Rod Collins, the Collins family, they're all very interested in moving forward pretty quickly here. And so within about 2 weeks, I was actually only unemployed for about 36 hours. So it actually worked out pretty well. And I know my wife's happy about that, but yeah, that's just a connection we made. Ernie Sutherland and I have known each other since the late 80s, early 90s, when he was my field assessor for my high performance 1 certification with Hockey Canada. So Ernie and I go way back. Rod and I have known each other for a lot of years, never really met each other, but known each other. And then yeah, so there's been lots of hockey connections there, and it all came together pretty quickly.
Did it help having 6 alumni on your team this year to see how those players progressed through your tutelage, but also to see how mature they were as young men working through the academy, joining the Blizzard this year, but then 3 of those 6 getting year-end awards as well?
Yeah, there's no question. It's and I'll be honest with you, you know what, it's Pilot Mountain has really got on my radar. And in the last 4 to 5 years with through the draft of the MJHL, and with some of the players that we had on our roster last year, the Bryden Sinclairs, the Brock McDonalds, the Brett DeTerrans, the Ashton Pauls, the Jace Larkinses, the Keelan Hollands. I mean, those are all junior A players, and as they said, they're award winners with our group. So what Rod and his staff have done out there has been really impressive, including the female side. So, certainly, I'll be honest with you again, and quite frank, I'd never been to Pilot Mountain, so I did not know the facilities that they have there. The wonderful, they got some a brand new facility going up. It's a $2 to $3 million facilities for new dorms and new cafeterias and new theaters and new kitchen space, new workout space. So it's quite an entertaining challenge for me, and I'm looking forward to to starting things off, and just being a part of a coaching team. And I think that's what's exciting about what Rod and the Collins family has put together, is that it really is a coaching team out there. So I'm looking forward to just to being a contributing member.
You're certainly correct in the infrastructure that's being increased there. The incredible dorms, which have been, obviously the roof has been put on, and hopefully they'll be ready by the fall. We've been told they'll be ready by the fall by Mr. Terry Collins, and they're going to house more of, or as all the teams perhaps in the fall. Blackjack Stewart Arena is huge compared to with that in that complex, and how that history of that building increased as well. But Billy, your name is going to be synonymous with the community of Pilot Mountain very quickly, because there's not a lot of people, and it's very much like a Cheers community where they get to know your name. Much like it was up north, this is a little bit quicker of a drive for you, only about 2 hours away, which you'll find out soon enough. What changes for you in terms of your demeanor, or does anything change coaching a junior hockey team compared to a pre-junior prep academy program?
I don't think anything changes, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, we're still, we've got some pillars of strength in terms of our, philosophies. We want to be the hardest working team in our league. We want to be disciplined. We want to be respectful. We want to be making sure we got good teammates throughout our group. And those are core values, and that has been, I learned that a long time ago with, playing under Wayne Fleming and Barry Trotz and all my coach mentors, over the years. And then certainly those pillars of strength won't change. But certainly these are younger guys. These are 15 to 17-year-olds, and they're aspiring to become junior A players. And I've been a junior A player and then moved on from junior A to the college ranks, as a player and as a coach. So I'm sure we can provide some direction for them. And I'm sure every guy, gal that's in the organization will we'll be aspiring to move on to the next level, and then we're still looking forward to getting there as fast as possible.
Well, certainly, I mean, 3 male teams, you're going to be at the pinnacle of that at the U18 level. How are you able to wear 2 different hats? I mean, the assistant GM, how are you assisting Rod, but then also taking care of your team and making sure that you're putting a good group of guys on the ice?
It's a little fluid right now with Rod and I. Like Rod is he's put in decades and decades of support, to the hockey community and in and around Pilot Mountain and Shattuck and all of the other spots he's been in. But he's looking for some support, and we're going to help him on the on the general managerial side. I'll be supporting him in a lot of different fronts, and and including recruiting, quite frankly. So first things first, we need a hockey team. So he's got a couple kids in mind. Certainly I personally would like to see more, pretty much a local group, primarily Manitoba kids, and maybe some kids from the surrounding areas. But certainly, the bottom line is there's there's some big financial commitments that go into running a prep school, and you got to have some, some families that can afford to to pay the, the fees aren't cheap. So it's but certainly they get tremendous value for it. But bottom line is too, we need to have some success on the ice. So there'll be that balance between balancing making sure we got our budget met and then making sure we're a competitive group on the ice.
It certainly is an investment not only for the players but also for the community, the collegiate that's involved, as well as for the coaching staff, because it's a well-rounded machine, and it's an investment of time and effort where it really blends and breeds and molds young athletes and young men to becoming student athletes. Before I let you go tonight, Billy, I got to ask you, what's on the horizon for you in the near future? I mean, what's your plan of attack for an assistant coach? I don't believe there's one hired yet, but what's going to be happening for you in these next couple of months now that you have the new position with two hats?
I think first things first, Rod and I are going to sit down. We've sat down a couple times already. Just to get first things first in place, and then I think first things first right now is recruiting and for me to get a lay of the land and Pilot Mound. I'm likely going to be heading out there tomorrow, just to connect with everybody and reconnect with everybody and start getting office space settled in and start to get things rolling the way I'd like to see things roll as a foundational perspective in terms of facilities and again meeting Ernie Sullivan and meeting Rick and meeting Kyle and meeting Dave and all the coaching team and just start things going. I can't wait to get out there. I'm gonna have a skate tonight with some of my buddies here in Winnipeg, and then I'm gonna get on the highway tomorrow and start getting things ready to go out there.
Well, I'm going to tell you to make sure you put on the kilometer range thing to make sure you find out the distance between here and Winnipeg, because that trip might happen several more times. Secondly, I really think you're going to be impressed with the community and the facilities involved. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, the pictures do not do it justice. It's a gorgeous facility run by volunteers down there in Pilot Mound. Enjoy your time. Congratulations, Billy. Really impressed and happy to have you join the academy, just like everybody else. And we look forward to great things in the coming months and the team that's going to be put together for the fall.
Dale, thanks very much. We'll look forward to talking to you throughout the year here.
It's Billy Keane with the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, the new assistant general manager, helping out Rod Collins, as well as the head coach for the U18 male program. Definitely has a to-do list on his plate, but I know he's going to be able to handle it. I'd like to thank everybody once again for joining us here on ASTV on the ice, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 o'clock. Thursday's episode will involve SIJHL Commissioner Darren Nicholas, who will join us talking about the trials and tribulations of this season and the many hurdles and blockades and everything they had to work through to get together to now where they're at the semifinals between the two teams around Thunder Bay as well as Red Lake and Dryden. That will be a great setting starting on Thursday, April the 7th. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight on the ice. Stay tuned as always. And we'll be back with more great episodes. Just a reminder, you can find us on Roku, Apple TV, and all our streaming line services, YouTube and Facebook Live. Item show, great, miss a show, no problem. They're all archived there for you to watch at a later date. Bringing more goodness to the greatness here on ASTV. Have a great weekend. Enjoy watching the snow melt. Take care and have a great rest of the weekend. Bye-bye for now.